born ready. Isn't that what Dr. Butler said? Good morning. Welcome to Sports Talk here at the beautiful campus of United States Sports Academy in Daphne, Alabama. I'm Brett Simmelmacher. I'll be your host today, sitting in for Dr. Butler. To my right, your left, is Mr. Ben Billman, one of our teaching assistants, and to my left, your right, Mr. Chris Coker, our Director of Continuing Education. First and foremost, before we get going today, we'd like to congratulate our founding president, Dr. Thomas P. Rosandich. He's receiving 2 prestigious awards. He's already received his International Sports Hall of Fame award this past Saturday up in Columbus, Ohio. And coming up April 6th on a Thursday, if you're interested and you're in the local area, he will be inducted into the Mobile Sports Hall of Fame over at the RSA building in downtown Mobile. 2 tremendous honors and very, very well earned on his behalf. UConn women update. They're 32-0 right now. They're 107 in a row. They had a very tough final game in the American Athletic Conference final Monday night, 100-44.
Gotta be careful.
Versus the USF.
I don't know if anybody can beat them. What do you think there?
Not anytime soon. I think they're, I hate to use words best, but the most likely opportunity for them to lose is probably going to be somewhere in the Final Four, in the semifinal or the final or somewhere like that, where it's going to take a nationally ranked type team to give them a run. And even those teams have not obviously haven't fared well and stuff. So not anytime soon, I don't think.
Yeah, and UConn executes so well. I think the only chance is if a team gets them in a shooting slump and they just get red hot from 3-point range, or are just hitting unconscious from the field. I think that's the only way it's going to happen.
And today's topic on today's show, we're going to discuss the coaching carousels that happen already in the FBS college football, and what's coming here in the not near distant future for some of the coaches that are on the hot seat with major college Division I basketball, men's basketball. This past year, up till next fall, we've had 21 FBS head coaching changes. Out of the ones that have been made, Ben, we'll go to you first.
Yeah.
What was maybe the most surprising one? And go ahead with that first.
It seemed like Lane Kiffin going to Florida Atlantic. I understand he had some issues with Saban. They had some disagreements and some arguments, and but for him to go to a program that is such a cellar dweller in the FBS level, it really surprised me. And maybe he didn't get other offers that he thought were going to be coming his way, or maybe there's some issues behind the scenes that we don't know about that many programs just don't want to bring him in. It surprised me how quickly that happened, and the timing that went along with it between the semifinal and the final just seemed very odd to me. And I know there were some issues. Kiffin missed some meetings and was late to a bus one day. But just a really awkward situation, and then him to jump to Florida Atlantic just kind of I think he'll do well there. I think he'll have success, but just a weird jump from Alabama offensive coordinator to Florida Atlantic.
And I think with that thing, once you've been a head coach at that level, you want to be a head coach.
Yeah.
You really don't want to be a coordinator. That's my take on it.
Mm-hmm.
Did I see where he just hired his father as his
Yes.
defensive coordinator?
His
Yeah.
dad was on the defensive side.
So, what's the most surprising one to you from the fall?
In the fall, I go back to the LSU job,
Mhm.
and this is a personal philosophy and stuff. I think when you fire a coach that early in the season, you don't really have an opportunity to hire anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And you're LSU, so you're going to be marketable to any coach that's out there at any time. So I look at that job there, to fire somebody that early, I thought was a bit surprising. And again, we don't know the whole situation. There may be some finite details we're not aware of. But to fire somebody that early, without an opportunity necessarily to go out and hire somebody, I found that kind of surprising. There's really not a lot you could do until the season's over with, and you still had 6 or 7 weeks left in the season.
Especially with the debacle at the end of the last season,
Yeah.
where they, came out before they were playing somebody that he was going to be let go, and then they let him go all the way up until, 2 or 3 games in, then you fire him.
And then you find I was very surprised by that, just because you can't hire anybody for a couple of months and stuff. And I think Coach George Ryan did a good job of pulling that thing together down, and he obviously eventually did well enough to get the job and stuff. But the timing of that to me was very awkward, I think.
And I think, some of these athletic directors, we might as well get on that point, because I agree with you. I think that was probably the most surprising one. And then Lane Kiffin would be a near close second.
Yeah.
But the other ones that we're talking about Baylor. We knew Baylor guy was going to get fired with all the accusations. Cal, Cincinnati. Some of these other schools that came open were Texas. I think when Texas loses to Kansas at Kansas, that was just. I think he might have been safe if he can beat Kansas, but when you lose to Kansas, and it's kind of the opposite. Kansas shouldn't be losing to maybe Texas in basketball, and Texas should not be losing to Kansas in football.
Yeah,
and I think
absolutely.
That was the nail in his coffin.
Well, and expectations are going to be high for Tom Herman.
Oh
there.
Yeah.
But just like other programs, they got to give Herman some time to come in there. They gave Charlie Strong 3 years, I believe. I don't know if Strong was the right fit for that program, but they got to give Herman at least 3 or 4 years before they start expecting Big 12 titles or anything. So,
speaking of that, Chris, you've been around college basketball for a long time. These athletic directors, these coaches are smart. They have agents. They get into their contract, their buyouts. Do you see that type of thing's going to change with larger buyouts? When Mark Godfrey got fired at North Carolina State with 5 or 6 games left, Calipari came out and said, "Hey, if I leave Kentucky and I get another job, I'm going to have it where if you fire me in the middle of the year, I'm going to get a buyout." What's your take on that?
I think this all of a sudden this becomes not a sport, it's not a game anymore. Now it's a financial decision. So and they are big time financial decisions that are made here. I think you will see coaches try to protect themselves financially. I think it's all about leverage. Who has the most leverage in a negotiation? And that's what it comes down to. So I think you'll see coaches who always try to get themselves in a leverage position to get paid, because the reality of it is there's not but 347 Division I college basketball jobs, and not all of them pay the North Carolina State kind of money. So it's very hard if you lose one of those positions to go get another one. And so just the fact there's just a limited number, and the fact that you can't progress beyond that. So coaches are going to always look to get themselves in position to make sure they have a secure future. And from the athletic director side, you have to make a financial decision. You've got to get the right guy. It's a big decision for the athletic director, and so the athletic director tries to put the program in the department, in the university, in the best position to make the best hire. So they'll guarantee money in hopes of getting that top-notch coach.
And Ben, on the same line, do you think a lot of these athletic directors pay too much attention to what the fans are saying with all the social media, with what the boosters are saying, same type of thing? Boosters get on the social media sites, they feel like, I'm giving millions of dollars to the program. If they're upset with somebody, do they have some pull in this?
I think they do, and it's all about money. It's all about revenue. I know one of the examples a few years back with T. Boone Pickens at Oklahoma State. He's basically funded either renovating or building their whole athletic complex and facility. How are you going to argue with a guy like that about coaches and making changes when he's basically provided so much for your program? So in situations like NC State, I would not be surprised at all if there were a lot of boosters that started to grumble, started saying we're going to pull our funding or we're going to cut back our funding if you keep Gottfried as the head coach. That wouldn't surprise me at all because athletic directors nowadays are so driven by money and revenue that a change of that nature could be devastating for a program if they lose that and that money is pulled out of their system.
Anything else you want to add about that, Chris?
I think one of the things that gets lost in this conversation of when to fire a coach, when not to fire a coach, and an athletic director, you have a responsibility to the student athlete experience.
Mm-hmm.
And me personally, if you disagree, we'll all still be friends and so forth.
Yeah.
So, me personally, I think I'm not a big fan of firing coaches in the middle of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Unless something egregious happens,
Mhm.
like the Baylor situation at Penn State. Those are, we all know what should happen there. Unless there's something egregious involved, I prefer to let coaches coach to the end of the year
Mm-hmm.
and then evaluate and try to give that student athlete the best opportunity to have the best season that they can have. And stuff. But it doesn't always work like that. There are a lot of moving parts, both behind the scenes and in front of the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about, Mark Gottfried a little bit. I'm a personal friend of Mark, so I have a little bit of inside information type of thing. Mark, before Mark got there, they hadn't been to the NCAA tournament in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets there his first 4 years. He goes to the NCAA tournament, and 2 of those 4 years were the Sweet 16.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has a down year last year because Trevor Lacey doesn't decide to come back. He goes, puts his name in the draft, ends up playing in Europe. Then a guy they're going to depend on, Terry Henderson, goes down.
Mm-hmm.
First game, 6 minutes in, kind of like Bogut.
Yeah.
The other night, breaks his leg a minute into the Cleveland game. Those kind of things happen. 4 of his top 8 players are freshmen.
Mm-hmm.
As an athletic director, put yourself in that seat, Ben. Are you gonna, even if the fans are being boisterous and putting all this stuff on social media, what are you gonna do? Or are you gonna say anything? Are you gonna sit back? What are you gonna do?
I think I would look into more of the details and not just the win-loss record, but are you graduating your players? Are they getting good grades? Are they staying out of trouble? Are they doing community service? Are they well respected on campus? And I think you can make some arguments to the boosters or the fan base saying, maybe we've struggled in the win-loss column these past 2 years, but Coach Gottfried has done a phenomenal job helping these players mature off the court. So there's different ways to analyze it, different statistics or numbers to look at. I look at Thad Matta, who it looks like he's safe.
Yeah.
But he had 1 or 2 poor recruiting classes for Ohio State. Great players, but not great leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really hurt him the past few years, but that should not negate the fact that, he runs a clean program. He's got great student athletes. He's been to the Final Four twice. And, he as a coach is very well respected in the Big Ten. So there's so many different factors that an athletic director should not just look at the win-loss record to make a final decision on hiring or firing.
And should it come down to one season, Chris?
I think you go back, you look at Mike Krzyzewski's history, and he is, a Hall of Fame coach, and
Right.
Mike Krzyzewski doesn't need my words to validate his success, but fantastic coach. But in his early years, he had some rough years. There were some times where, in the early years, there was some anxiety and there was some pressure on him. Now, I'm pretty sure Duke is glad they decided to give him an extra couple of years and stuff. So,
Yeah.
the philosophical question is 3 years enough?
Mm-hmm.
And in many cases, I'm not sure 3 years is always enough. And
Yeah.
like you said, Ben, if your program is maturing and your program is moving in the right direction, the wins and losses will take care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 years may not be enough a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
especially with young teams. One of the things I think Coach Self has done in Kansas, he's managed to keep his team kind of on the older side. That's why he's got 13 conference championships. So looking at that though, I don't think 3 years is enough. And there are there are factors of the team I think that come into play: youth, injury,
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about Kansas a little bit. I mean, they've had some turmoil within their program, and they're still playing well.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because he's a seasoned coach? I mean, you know, as far as athletic directors go, it's their job, in my opinion, to do the research. They're the experts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think personally that they come out in the media or on social media. I don't think they should do it on social media. But I think when these types of things are going on, like with Charlie Strong, with Les Miles, and those, the athletic directors need to step up and get up in front of a podium
Mm-hmm.
and talk to their fan base and say, hey, this is why we're going to stay with Les Miles. This is why we're going to not stay with Les Miles. Whatever. But that's their job, don't you think?
And I think athletic directors and, you know, fan bases as a whole have to understand, you know, who are we as a program?
Mm-hmm.
What are our heights? How far can we get? Because I look at, again, we keep coming back to Coach Gottfried and all the coaches in the ACC. When you look at Roy Williams, Coach K, Rick Pitino, Jim Boeheim, and to an extent Tony Bennett and the coach at Notre Dame, Mike Bray. You're looking at 6 of the best coaches in the country, 4 Hall of Famers already. At NC State, you've got to know what the expectation or what the ceiling is for your team.
Mm-hmm.
And right now in the ACC, you know, if you can finish 5th or 6th in that conference,
You've had a great year.
You've done phenomenal.
If you're not one of those other 4 teams.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
I look at Jim Larinaga at Miami, and he's a phenomenal coach. Has done a great job at Miami. But you look at him, and he had one great year a couple years ago where they either won the conference or were right at the top. But it's impossible to sustain that year after year because you're going up against all these Hall of Fame coaches who are getting top 5 recruiting classes every year. So, you know, as an athletic director, I think you need to let your fan base know this is who we are. You know, we can improve on that over time, but right now, this is who we are, and we need to be okay with that, continue to improve, continue to mature, but let's not blow this out of the water and blow the expectations up so high when we can't expect that year in and year out.
I think with the ACC, you know, there's such an established hierarchy at the moment with those, and that took time to build that hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
None of those programs you mentioned were 3 or 4 year programs.
Mm-hmm.
It took time to establish that hierarchy, and once that paradigm shifts,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there might be time or some room for some changes. I look at the SEC on the other side. You know, the SEC, you know, outside of Kentucky, Coach White at Florida's got some things going in the right direction,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot of room for movement in the
Mm-hmm.
SEC right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think LSU has made an announcement what they're going to do with their job decision. So people may be interested in the LSU job, thinking that in 2 years, 3 years, we can get to the third seed or higher.
Absolutely.
In the ACC, that's going to be hard to get to that second.
Right.
seed.
Okay, something I want to do real quick because we're
Do
running
you want
out
a
of
score
time.
update?
What's that?
Do you want a score update on the conference tournaments right now?
No, not right now.
Okay,
And-
go.
and we're going to do like Kornheiser and Wilbot.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a name. You're going to say yay or nay. It's got to be quick. Tom Crean. Is he going to survive?
Nay.
Nay.
Ooh. Lorenzo Romar.
Yay.
Nay.
Ooh. John Gross at Illinois.
Nay.
Yeah, he's got a good recruiting class coming in next
Tim
year.
Miles at Nebraska.
Yay.
Yay.
We already talked about Miles. Bruce Weber at Kansas State.
Nay.
Yay.
Ooh. Brad Bromwell at Clemson.
Yay.
Yay.
Jim Christensen, Boston College.
Yay.
Nay.
We got some yays and nays. Give us some updates.
Miami's leading Syracuse 32-28 in the ACC tournament, and South Alabama's leading Coastal Carolina 21-16 in the Sun Belt Conference first round.
Go Jags.
Yes, go Jags.
And this day in sports history,
Let's hear it.
in 1930 on this day, Babe Ruth signed a 2-year contract with the New York Yankees for $160,000.
Man, what would Babe Ruth be making today?
A lot of money.
Maybe make money be many money.
Yeah.
Well, that's a wrap for today here at the United States Sports Academy and Sports Talk. Please join us again next week at 11:30.
Expanded next week because it's the bracket show.
Okay, bracket show next week.
So we might be starting
Because
earlier.
This is Selection Sunday, and we'll probably, what, you said we start a little bit earlier?
Yeah, we're gonna be starting earlier next
Okay,
week.
great. And hopefully you can join us and tune in again next week at our beautiful campus here in Daphne, Alabama. Thank you. Have a great week in sports.